Today we're going to talk about accessibility, and we'll begin with a quick look at the ADA, which you've probably heard of. The ADA stands for a law, the Americans with Disabilities Act. That was a law that was passed in 1990, and it is a civil rights law. The first civil rights law was passed in 1964. It didn't include protection for people with disabilities, and so the 1990 law addressed that. The next year, a set of guidelines was published, the Americans with Disabilities Act Accessibility Guidelines, ADAG. And ADAG is what we refer to when we look up how big does something have to be and where does it have to be. Here's a brief timeline with some more stuff in here. There's the 1964 Civil Rights Law. Some more stuff happened. In '86, there was a revision to an ANSI standard, and this is a standard for accessible buildings that the code refers to. I'll mention more about that in the next slide. And then here's the ADA and ADAG. The most current version of ADAG is the 2010 version. It's not revised very often. So about law. The ADA is federal law. It's federal civil rights law. And it says that all people have a right to get access to certain kinds of spaces no matter what. That sounds good. It actually is, I think of it more as a bare minimum. So it's a bare minimum. It doesn't say here's how you should do it. It just says here's the bare minimum you have to do. And then ADAG is what we look at as designers to tell us what we have to do. Now, the building code is developed by the international building officials, and it is a model code. And what that means is this code is written as sort of an ideal code, and it says, dear states, counties, and cities, you could adopt this if you wanted to. This is our model. So most local jurisdictions do adopt it. And when they adopt the code, then it has become law. The building code, the model building code, has a chapter in it about accessibility, and it is nearly identical to ADAG. So if your jurisdiction, like let's say your local city, uses the IBC model code, you then have an accessibility chapter in your building code that says what you shall do. Some of the ADA work is adopted by reference straight into the building code. Then there's this ANSI standard, the Standard for Accessible and Usable Buildings and Facilities, and it is adopted by reference into the building code. It has technical details similar to ADAG. It gets updated more often, and it has several categories, several types, and a type that we'll look at later in a couple of slideshows hence is called visitability. However, ADA law is not required for houses. Your house does not have to comply with ADA. If you do a commercial building, you do have to comply with ADA law. But if you're building a house, no, you don't. However, there are things you can think about as a designer and builder, and two of them I would like to look at with you are visitability and universality.